I'm Matt Barbette, and I'm here to tell you about the work of Action Medical Research, a charity that is very close to my heart, and also about four long-term friends who are about to do something amazing to support them. Charities play a really important role in our communities, and I'm sure that many of you have at some point raised funds for a very good cause. Charities are particularly well placed to respond to social challenges, and they have the potential to build bridges and unite people through their work. The charity sector is recognized as a vehicle of powerful human endeavor and instinct to do good, the impact of which is important to the government, to the economy, and to society. Charities have the potential, perhaps even the responsibility, to help bridge our divides. I'm an ambassador for this very special charity. And while Action Medical Research may not be a charity that you've heard of yet, I can guarantee you that the work they do will have touched all of us in some way. Simply put, Action help to save and change the lives of babies, children, and young people through medical research. The charity was founded by a guy called Duncan Guthrie around 70 years ago. Now, Duncan's daughter, Janet, contracted polio, a disabling and life-threatening disease caused by a virus that devastated communities in the 1950s. Janet was just 20 months old, and Duncan decided to do something about it. He created the charity and headed up the fundraising that led to them playing a crucial role in the development of the UK's first polio vaccines. Duncan didn't have a medical background, but he was driven by a passion to bring about change. And the work of the charity is still driven by his belief that the diseases that blight the lives of so many of our children can be beaten. So the charity helped to beat polio, but that was not the end of the story. Amongst many breakthroughs, the charity went on to help develop the rubella vaccine and the Hib B meningitis vaccine. Action also established a link between taking folic acid during and before pregnancy to prevent spina bifida in babies. For many of you, the first image your parents would have seen of you would have been from an ultrasound scan. Action took the military application of ultrasound and then developed the amazing medical tool it is today. I say amazing, as ultrasound is estimated to have almost halved the death rate for babies at the time of birth. Now, today, Action continues to tackle the challenges of disease and disability by funding high-quality research in areas as diverse as epilepsy, ADHD, asthma, heart conditions, brain injury, cerebral palsy, and many more. The pandemic, which has hit all of us in recent times, takes Action Medical Research back to its roots. The charity played its part in defeating the polio virus, and right now it's driving forward research to help protect vulnerable children from the COVID-19 virus and to help understand the long-term impact it may have for some young people. Today in the UK, there are hundreds of thousands of sick and disabled children who need help. For many of us, the pandemic has highlighted the importance of the science and the essential research needed to save and to change lives. I'd like to highlight one important area of research where Action has been relentless in its pursuit for answers: premature birth. Now, this is when a baby is born too soon. Full-term babies are born between 39 and 40 weeks. If they arrive before 37 weeks, then they are classed as premature. Babies should arrive when all the good work has been done inside mum. So babies that pop out too soon are at risk of missing out on all this good work. The earlier a baby arrives increases the risk of immediate or lifelong problems and potentially even the ability to survive. Action funds research to help prevent pregnancy complications, to tackle premature birth, and to develop treatments for little ones who've become sick and vulnerable because they've arrived too early. Sadly, premature birth is the biggest killer of babies in the UK. Here in the UK, around 60,000 babies are born prematurely every year. That's 1 in every 13. Tragically, over 1,000 babies die each year due to being born too soon. Globally, around 1 million children die each year from the complications of premature birth. and it remains the single biggest killer of children under 5 years old. Now, babies who survive are at an increased risk of developing lifelong conditions like cerebral palsy, blindness, and learning difficulties. They're also more vulnerable to high blood pressure and diabetes during adulthood. And some research has also found that the earlier a baby is born, the higher their risk of having special educational needs at school. We still don't really know why some babies are born prematurely, but Action will continue to fund research into the causes to help discover why some babies are born too soon and to develop treatments to help save babies' lives. I want to share with you the story of one little boy called Elijah. He was born extremely prematurely at 25 weeks and 3 days, weighing just 823 grams. That's about the weight of 2 cans of Coke. He was small enough to fit inside a sandwich bag, which helped to protect his see-through skin. Elijah's tiny nappy was the size of a tea bag. Now, the blood transfusions that tiny Elijah needed amounted to just 3.5 teaspoons worth. At first, he seemed to be doing well, but things changed suddenly when he contracted the devastating bowel infection called NEC. This happens when the lining of a baby's intestines becomes inflamed and starts to die. Elijah endured urgent surgery to remove 82 centimeters of his intestines, which NEC had destroyed. Sadly, he also suffered severe brain damage, and his parents had to make the heartbreaking decision to let him go. Elijah was a fighter, but despite the hard work of many doctors and nurses, sadly, he just was not strong enough to survive. He lived for just 37 days. Elijah took part in an Action-funded study to develop a new test for NEC so that babies at risk of this terrible disease can be diagnosed and treated sooner. The charity is funding further research into NEC to help save tiny lives. Elijah's too short life and the bravery of his mum and dad has inspired many to support the work of Action. And we all know that some people take on the most unusual challenges to raise money for charities. Elijah's tragic story inspired 4 friends to take on a challenge that is really not for the faint-hearted or the ill-prepared. Dean, Phil, Jason, and Lee, who have known each other since their school days, decided that they were going to row across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, if you say this quickly, it may not seem like such a big thing, but when you stop to think about it, they'll be doing this in a boat which has no sails and no engine and only has oars, and they're going to row 3,000 miles. Now, when these friends heard about baby Elijah and his short life, they decided to call themselves Team Elijah's Star, and they committed themselves to rowing across the Atlantic in just 37 days in honor of the number of days that Elijah lived for. The team will be rowing in the Talisker Atlantic Challenge, which is known as the world's toughest row, and their journey will take them from La Gomera in the Canary Islands, which is where Columbus set sail from in 1492 when he accidentally bumped into the Americas, and they'll be heading to Antigua and Barbuda in the Caribbean. The team will row more than 1.5 million oar strokes, and the rowers will work in pairs on a rolling schedule, rowing for 2 hours, then sleeping for 2 hours, and repeating this non-stop 24 hours a day. It is a truly grueling challenge, and to date, more people have climbed Everest than have rowed the Atlantic. Their boat is only 20 feet long, that's about the same length as a double-decker bus, and it's only 5 feet wide with a small cabin at each end for protection against storms. The only power they'll have is generated by the solar panels mounted on the cabin roof. This is used to power the navigation and communication systems. Importantly, it also powers the equipment that converts seawater into drinking water. Yep, that's right. They have to make their own water as they row along. The rowing starts in December. Now, this is the best time of the year to try to cross the Atlantic with the favorable westerly trade winds helping to push the boat in the right direction. However, the team can still expect extreme weather, including hurricanes and storms and waves up to 12 meters or 40 feet high. Most boats making this crossing are expected to capsize at some point, so the team have had to train really hard to deal with crisis situations. The rowers can expect to see some amazing wildlife along the way, though. Dolphin pods will be regular visitors, and last year a rowing team were kept company by a humpbacked whale for 7 days. As they row through the nights, there will be times when they will be treated to a dramatic light display as well. As each oar stroke hits the water, bright lights will be produced by the chemical reaction produced inside bioluminescent organisms. But there are potential dangers from wildlife too. The underside of the boat will develop its own ecosystem of algae and barnacles. Small fish feed on this, and then larger fish come to feed on the smaller ones. This attracts the world's biggest bony fish, the giant blue marlin, which has a very long sword-like snout, which, when they pop along for a snack, can cause real damage to the boat. Last year, the hulls of 2 rowing boats were pierced. The physical effects on the team can also be really extreme and include salt sores and blisters, hallucinations and fatigue, seasickness and cramps. Not very pleasant. The team will feel intense isolation as well. When they're in the middle of the Atlantic, the closest people will be on the International Space Station, and the nearest land will be about 5 miles straight down. The rowers will burn more than 5,000 calories per day and can expect to lose, on average, 12 kilograms crossing the Atlantic. They will survive on a diet of freeze-dried rations, and each rower will need to consume 10 liters of water per day. And the question you've probably all been asking yourselves, no, there is no toilet on board. Rowers use a bucket. We wish them really well as they set off in mid-December, and you can watch the team's progress on the Talisker Atlantic Challenge website, where you'll also find the Race Tracker app, which lets you see just how they're doing and how far they have traveled. Watching these tiny dots as they cross the ocean can be addictive, but do get involved if you can and enjoy following our boat. Team Elijah Star are rowing in honor of baby Elijah, and their boat will also be carrying the names of over 1,000 children who were also born too soon. This special voyage shines a light on premature birth. Thanks so much for listening. It's been a real pleasure to spend some time with you to tell you about the important work of Action Medical Research. Enjoy the final term of the calendar year and do have a great Christmas break.